Ivan, Vanakkam, Assalamu alaikum, and good morning to you all. I suppose, Duminda, we would have had many sessions of this nature when there's an election nearby. We would have listened to this type of rosy stories or fairy tales, lot of graphs as to this is how we are going to implement. But look at the results. It's boiling down to implementation. It's about credibility of political leaders to deliver what they preach. If you look at the Auditor General's statement, my presentation will have two components, just to brief. One is why we are here today as a nation and what's our plan as we go forward. Auditor General of the country is mentioning since 2015 to 22, 8 trillion rupees government has borrowed as for project loans, of which 75% is unaccounted for. Our international counterparts, I'm sure they are listening. This is where the money is going. Duminda, representing auditors, it will be an insult to auditors when Auditor General has reported 75% of the funding is unaccounted for. We are here listening to a team who are answerable for that. That's one angle. Madam Kasturi, coming from the private sector, in your organization, if you have managers, key managers, who have never delivered the budget, overspent on their budget, on their expenses, overloaded factories with staff, never delivered what they promised, would you interview them again to ask what are they going to do within the next 5 years? What would your shareholders think if you do that one? What would your employees think who would look up to you if you do that? But here we are today, doing the same thing, listening to failed politicians and their stories as to how are we going to do it again within the next 5 years. That's why a change of culture is required in Sri Lanka as to how we approach this as a nation. Central Bank printed enormous amount of money. Which provision of the previous Central Bank Act prevented the Monetary Board to take an independent decision, as if there were competent officials there, appointees there, to say no to a minister? When the government is asking, if the Secretary to the Treasury is asking to print money, that's why there are many members, not just one, in the Monetary Board to say no, not to be overwhelmed by intimidation of politicians. That is the change of culture we need to look at, not just by changing legislations. Few months back, the same Secretary to the Treasury said, if you are going to increase 10,000 rupees, we have to increase VAT. We don't have money. 2 months later, when the government is saying we are going to increase salaries again, the same state officials are saying, oh yes, the government revenue has now increased. We can ask IMF to increase our provisions for increasing salaries. We need a change of culture where state officials will be able to stand up on their own for what they truly believe, not to be lip servants to the politicians. That's the change of culture that we are talking of.